How to become likable and charismatic. Hello and welcome. Have you ever walked into a room and felt completely invisible? Or maybe you've watched someone else effortlessly command attention, not with loudness, but with a quiet confidence that draws people in, and you've thought to yourself, I wish I could do that. For a long time, we've been told a lie, that charisma is something you're born with. It's like having blue eyes or being tall. Either you have it or you don't. But that's simply not true. Likability, charisma, personal magnetism, whatever you want to call it, is not a gift. It is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. This book isn't about changing who you are. It's not about memorizing fake lines or putting on a performance. It's about unlocking the best, most authentic version of yourself and learning how to share that person with the world. It's about turning down the volume on your inner critic and turning up the dial on your genuine interest in others. Over the next 5 chapters, we're going to go on a journey together. We will break down the science and art of connection into simple, actionable steps. No complex theories, just practical tools you can start using today. You're about to learn how to make people feel seen, heard, and valued, and in doing so you will become unforgettable. Let's begin. Before we dive in, I have a question for you. Think of one person in your life who, when you talk to them, makes you feel truly seen and heard. You don't have to name them, but what is one quality they have that makes you feel that way? Is it the way they listen, their warm smile, their curiosity? Share that one quality in the comments below. It will be fascinating to see what we all value most in others. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Charisma comes from within. Let's start by painting a picture. Imagine you are at a gathering, maybe a work event, a friend's party, or a community meeting. The room is buzzing with conversation, 100 little orbits of people talking and laughing. And then you notice someone. This person isn't the loudest. They aren't wearing the flashiest clothes or telling the most outrageous stories. Yet there's a gravity to them. When they speak, people lean in. When they listen, the person speaking to them seems to stand a little taller, their eyes lighting up as they share their thoughts. People seem to open up to this person, revealing more than just surface-level pleasantries. When this person moves to another group, they leave behind a trail of smiles. They have a certain glow, an ease, a presence. We call this charisma. And for most of our lives, we have been conditioned to believe that this quality is a kind of modern-day magic, bestowed upon a lucky few at birth. We look at them and think, they're just a natural. This is the greatest myth of personal connection, and it is the first and most important barrier we must dismantle. Believing that charisma is an innate, unchangeable trait is a deeply disempowering idea. It turns you into a spectator in your own social life. It forces you to accept your current level of comfort and connection as a life sentence. If you believe you weren't born with it, you will never try to develop it. And why would you? You can't learn to be taller, you can't learn to have a different eye color, so why would you think you can learn to be charismatic? Today, right now, we are going to challenge and shatter that belief. Charisma is not a personality trait. It is a set of skills and mindsets. And like any other skill, whether it's learning to play the guitar, cook a delicious meal, or speak a new language, it can be broken down, understood, practiced, and mastered. No one is born a concert pianist. They are born with fingers and a potential for music, but it is the thousands of hours of conscious practice, the learning of scales, the understanding of chords, and the interpretation of melody that creates the breathtaking music. Charisma is no different. Your instrument is your mind, your voice, and your body. The music is the feeling of connection you create in others. To begin this journey, we must first deal with the single largest obstacle to developing these skills. It's a powerful force that holds us back in almost every social interaction, from a casual chat with a barista to a major presentation at work. This obstacle is our relentless and overwhelming self-consciousness. It's that nagging inner voice, that constant internal monologue of anxiety and self-judgment. What do they think of me? Did I say something stupid? I sound so boring. Everyone here is more confident than I am. I have nothing interesting to contribute. This internal focus, this constant self-monitoring, is the enemy of charisma. You cannot be charismatic while you are obsessing over how you are being perceived. The two states are mutually exclusive. It's like trying to listen to two different radio stations at the same time. All you get is static. The good news is that much of this self-consciousness is based on a profound misunderstanding of how the social world actually works. Psychologists have a name for this illusion: the spotlight effect. This is the powerful and often paralyzing feeling that we are the center of everyone's attention, that a giant, glaring spotlight is following our every move and highlighting our every flaw for the world to see. If you spill a drop of coffee on your shirt, you feel as though every single person in the room has noticed and is judging you for your clumsiness. If you stumble over a word during a conversation, you are convinced that everyone is now thinking about how awkward you are. The reality could not be more different. A famous study conducted by psychologists Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky at Cornell University brought this phenomenon to life in a brilliant way. They took a group of students and asked one of them to wear what they knew would be an embarrassing t-shirt. It was a bright yellow shirt with a huge picture of the singer Barry Manilow on it. Now, no offense to Barry Manilow, but for a college student at the time, this was considered deeply uncool. The student wearing the shirt was then asked to walk into a room where other students were filling out questionnaires. They were in the room for only a few moments, and then they left. Afterward, the researchers asked the student in the Manilow shirt a simple question. Out of the people in that room, what percentage do you think noticed the picture on your shirt? On average, the t-shirt wearers predicted that about half the people in the room, around 50%, had noticed their embarrassing attire. They felt the spotlight burning brightly on them. But when the researchers asked the other students in the room what they remembered, the reality was starkly different. On average, fewer than 25% had noticed the shirt. Most people were so absorbed in their own thoughts, their own questionnaires, their own anxieties, that they didn't even register the giant face on the person's shirt who had just walked by. This study, and others like it, reveal a fundamental truth about human nature. People are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They are too busy thinking about themselves. They are worrying about their own spotlight. They are concerned with the coffee stain on their own shirt, the word they just stumbled over, the joke they are about to tell. Realizing this, truly and deeply internalizing this fact, is one of the most liberating experiences you can have. It is permission to relax. It is permission to be imperfect. The imaginary audience you have been performing for your entire life is not actually paying attention. You are free. Let this idea sink in for a moment. The pressure you feel is largely self-imposed. The judgment you fear is a phantom. When you walk into a room, you don't have to be perfect, polished, or witty. You just have to be you. This realization is the key that unlocks the door to genuine charisma, because it allows you to stop the exhausting act of managing your own image and start the rewarding act of engaging with the world. Imagine the mental energy you will free up. All the brain power that was once dedicated to, "Am I doing this right?" can now be redirected to, "Who is this person in front of me? What is their story? What makes them excited?" This is the first and most critical shift you will make. It's the shift from self-consciousness to other consciousness. Let's try a small thought experiment. Think back to the last time you felt socially anxious. Maybe you were at a party where you didn't know many people. What were the thoughts running through your head? I would wager they were questions like, "Do I belong here? I don't know what to say. Everyone seems to know each other. I should probably just stand by the snack table and look at my phone." These are all me-focused thoughts. They are centered on your own feelings, your own performance, your own perceived inadequacies. Now, imagine walking into that same party with a different mission. Your mission is not to impress anyone. Your mission is not to be the life of the party. Your mission is simply to find out one interesting thing about 3 different people. Suddenly, the entire dynamic changes. Your brain has a new task. Instead of scanning the room for threats of judgment, you start scanning the room for opportunities for curiosity. You might approach someone standing alone, and instead of thinking, "What do I say?" you think, "I wonder what their story is." You might ask them, "This is a great party. How do you know the host?" Your focus has shifted from your internal state to the external world. You are no longer a performer on a stage. You are an explorer on an adventure. And here is the beautiful paradox. The less you worry about being likable, the more likable you become. This mental shift from me to you is the foundational principle of all charisma. It is the bedrock upon which all other techniques are built. Charisma is not about being the most interesting person in the room. It is about being the most interested person in the room. It is about making other people feel interesting. It is about making them feel seen, heard, and valued. When you are genuinely curious about someone, they can feel it. Your body language changes. You lean in. Your eyes are focused. Your questions are thoughtful. You are giving them the gift of your full attention, which is one of the rarest and most precious commodities in our distracted modern world. Think about how it feels when someone gives you that gift. It's magnetic. You feel a pull towards that person. You open up. You trust them. That feeling you get from them is the very essence of charisma, and it is generated not by their witty stories or clever jokes, but by the space they create for you to be yourself. This is not a trick. It is not a manipulation. It is a genuine reorientation of your intention. You are not feigning interest to get something from someone. You are cultivating genuine curiosity because people are, when you really take the time to look, fascinating. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a passion. Everyone has a struggle. Everyone has something they can teach you. When you approach conversations with this mindset, they cease to be social hurdles you have to clear and become opportunities for discovery. Let's break down how to start practicing this mental flip in your everyday life. It starts with your internal monologue. The next time you're about to enter a social situation, whether it's a phone call, a video meeting, or a dinner, take a moment to set your intention. Instead of the default anxious thoughts, consciously choose a new set of questions. Replace "What will they think of me?" with "What can I learn from them?" Replace "I hope I don't say something dumb" with "I hope I can make them feel comfortable." Replace "Am I interesting enough?" with "What do I find interesting about them?" This conscious redirection of your thoughts is like setting a new course on a GPS. At first, your brain will want to revert to the old familiar roads of self-doubt, but with practice, the new path of curiosity will become your default. This brings us to the third pillar of your charismatic foundation: authenticity. If the first pillar is understanding that charisma is a skill, and the second is shifting your focus from me to you, the third is having the courage to be yourself. There is a common misconception that to be likable, you need to be a social chameleon, perfectly adapting your personality to match whoever you are with. You need to like the music they like, laugh at the jokes they tell, and hide any opinion or quirk that might be different. This approach is not only exhausting, but it is also completely ineffective. People have a highly developed radar for inauthenticity. We can sense when someone is putting on an act, when their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes, or when their compliments feel hollow and calculated. Trying to be a perfect, universally appealing version of a person makes you seem less like a person and more like a robot. It creates distance, not connection. True charisma, the kind that creates lasting and meaningful relationships, is rooted in authenticity. It's about letting your real personality shine through. This doesn't mean you should be brutally honest or overshare your deepest secrets with every stranger you meet. It simply means that you are not hiding the core of who you are. It means being comfortable with your own unique interests, your sense of humor, and even your imperfections. In fact, it is often our imperfections that make us most likable. Social psychologists have identified something called the pratfall effect, which beautifully illustrates this point. The effect was first studied by Elliot Aronson. In his experiment, he had people listen to a recording of a student taking part in a quiz competition. The student was portrayed as highly intelligent and competent, answering almost all the questions correctly. In one version of the recording, after the quiz was over, the student could be heard making a clumsy mistake, spilling a cup of coffee all over themselves. The researchers then asked the listeners to rate how likable the student was. The results were fascinating. The highly competent student who committed the blunder, the pratfall, was rated as significantly more likable than the competent student who did not. The perfect student was admired, but the student who was brilliant and yet still clumsy enough to spill coffee was loved. Why is this? Because perfection is intimidating. It creates a barrier. We look at someone who seems perfect and we think, I could never be like them. It makes them unrelatable. But when that same person reveals a small flaw, a moment of human clumsiness, it shatters the illusion of perfection. It makes them real. It makes them relatable. It gives us permission to be imperfect too. This is an incredibly powerful lesson. Your quirks, your little mistakes, your moments of vulnerability are not liabilities to be hidden. They are assets that can build connection. When you have the courage to laugh at yourself for tripping on the sidewalk, or you can admit that you are nervous before a presentation, or you can share a story about a time you failed at something, you are not showing weakness. You are showing humanity. You are sending a signal to the people around you that says, I am not perfect, and I don't expect you to be perfect either. We are in this together. Authenticity is your superpower, because there is only one of you in the entire world. No one else has your specific blend of experiences, passions, and perspectives. When you try to be like someone else, you are offering the world a cheap copy. When you are yourself, you are offering the world a priceless original. This might sound like a simple platitude from a greeting card, but it is a deep, functional truth. The people who are meant to connect with you will be drawn to your real self. The ones who are not, won't be. And that is perfectly okay. You are not trying to be liked by everyone. You are trying to build genuine connections with the right people. So how do you practice being more authentic, especially if you have spent a lifetime trying to fit in? It starts with self-awareness. You cannot share your real self with the world if you are not clear on who that self is. This is where we need to do some inner work. We are going to end this chapter with a practical exercise, a foundational step in building your authentic charisma. I call it the 3 Pillars of You exercise. I want you to find a quiet moment later today with a pen and paper or a new note on your phone. I want you to think about and write down the answers to 3 questions. First, what is a quality you genuinely like about yourself? This is not about what you think other people will find impressive. This is for you. Maybe it's your sense of humor, even if it's a bit weird. Maybe it's your loyalty to your friends. Maybe it's your passion for a specific hobby, like gardening or vintage movies. Maybe it's your resilience, the way you have gotten through tough times. Dig deep and find something that is core to who you are, something you would not want to change. This is a pillar of your strength. Second, what is a story from your life, big or small, that reveals something true about you? It doesn't have to be a dramatic, life-changing event. In fact, small stories are often better. Maybe it's the story of the time you got hopelessly lost but ended up discovering a beautiful park. This could show that you are adventurous and can find the good in a bad situation. Maybe it's the story of how you spent a whole weekend helping a friend move. This shows you are a generous and reliable person. Think of a simple, relatable story that is a snapshot of your character. This is a pillar of your experience. Third, what is something you are genuinely curious about? What subject could you happily fall down a rabbit hole learning about for hours? It could be anything, from the history of ancient Rome to the science of baking the perfect sourdough bread, from how electric cars work to the life cycle of monarch butterflies. It doesn't matter if it's cool or impressive. What matters is that the curiosity is real. This is a pillar of your passion. Take your time with this exercise. These 3 pillars, your strength, your experience, and your passion, are the core components of your authentic self. They are the stories and qualities that make you uniquely you. When you are clear on them, you have a foundation to stand on. In a conversation, instead of thinking, I have nothing to say, you can think about how your curiosity for history relates to the museum someone just mentioned. Instead of faking an interest in something, you can share a small piece of your genuine passion. Instead of presenting a perfect, flawless image, you can share the small, funny story of you getting lost. This is not about bragging or making the conversation all about you. It is about contributing your unique color to the canvas of the conversation. Let's review what we have established in this foundational chapter. First, we have destroyed the myth of the natural. Charisma is not a gift. It is a skill that can be learned by anyone, including you. Second, we have identified the main obstacle to charisma, our own self-consciousness, and we have learned that it is based on the illusion of the spotlight effect. The truth is, people are not judging you as harshly as you think, which gives you the freedom to relax. Third, we have discovered the master key to unlocking charisma, shifting our focus from our own performance to a genuine curiosity about others. It's the great mental flip from me to you. And finally, we have understood that all of this must be built on a foundation of authenticity. True connection comes not from being a perfect version of someone else, but from having the courage to be an imperfect, real version of yourself. You have now laid the groundwork. You have the right mindset. You understand the core principles. This is the most important part of the journey. The following chapters will give you more specific tools, techniques, and strategies for conversation, listening, and body language. But all of those tools will be useless without this solid foundation. You cannot build a strong house on shaky ground. Today, you have solidified that ground. You have taken the first and most crucial step. You have accepted that you have the power to change. You have decided to stop being a spectator and start being an active participant in your own life. You are capable of building incredible connections with the people around you. You have everything you need to begin. Remember this feeling of empowerment. Carry it with you. The journey to becoming more likable and charismatic is not about becoming someone different. It is about becoming more of who you already are. It is about removing the layers of fear and self-doubt that have been hiding your true, authentic, and inherently valuable self from the world. You are ready. Chapter 2. The Art of Connection. Listening is a loud action. In our first chapter, we laid the foundation. We dismantled the myth that charisma is a magical trait you are born with and reframed it as a skill you can learn. We discovered that the greatest obstacle to connection is our own internal monologue of anxiety, a fear largely based on the illusion of the spotlight effect. And most importantly, we learned the single most powerful mental shift you can make. Turning your focus from the consuming question of, "What do they think of me?" to the generous question of, "Who is this person in front of me?" This shift from self-consciousness to other consciousness is the engine of charisma. Now in this chapter, we are going to learn how to operate that engine. We are going to learn the single most powerful, most underrated, and most transformative skill in the entire human interaction toolkit. We are going to learn how to truly listen. I know what you might be thinking. Listening, that's it. I know how to listen. I do it every day. But I would challenge that assumption. What most of us do every day is not listening. It is waiting. We are waiting for our turn to talk. We are hearing the words the other person is saying, but our mind is a whirlwind of activity. We are formulating our response. We are thinking of a similar story we can tell. We are judging their opinion. We are trying to come up with a clever solution to their problem. Our ears might be open, but our minds are closed, busy preparing our own broadcast. This is not listening. This is conversational reloading. And people can feel it. They can sense when you are not fully present with them, when your attention is divided. It makes them feel unimportant, unheard, and disconnected. True deep active listening is a loud action. It is a conscious, deliberate choice to offer someone the entirety of your attention. It is a declaration that for this moment in time, what they have to say is the most important thing in your world. It is an act of profound respect and generosity. When you give someone the gift of your complete presence, you are telling them, without words, you matter. Your story matters. Your feelings matter. This is the invisible force that creates the feeling of connection. It is the secret behind those people who make you feel like you are the only person in the room. They are not doing anything magical. They have simply mastered the art of listening, and you are about to master it too. To understand what good listening is, we must first perform an honest autopsy on our bad listening habits. Most of us fall into one of a few common roles when we are in a conversation, none of which involve true listening. As I describe these, see if you recognize yourself in any of them. Be honest. Acknowledging our patterns is the first step to changing them. First, there is the problem solver. The problem solver listens to another person's story through the filter of, how can I fix this? A friend comes to you and says, I'm so stressed out at work. My boss just piled 3 new projects on my desk, and I have no idea how I'm going to get it all done. The problem solver immediately jumps into action mode. Okay, here's what you do, they say. First, you need to make a prioritized list. Then, you should delegate that one task to Jessica. Have you tried time blocking your calendar? You should also talk to your boss and set some boundaries. While the problem solver's intentions are often good, they have completely missed the point. The friend probably wasn't looking for a 5-point action plan. They were looking for empathy. They were looking for someone to say, "Wow, that sounds incredibly overwhelming. I'm sorry you're dealing with that." By immediately trying to fix the problem solver invalidates the person's feelings. It subtly communicates the message, "Your feeling of being overwhelmed is a problem that needs to be eliminated, rather than an experience that needs to be understood." Next, we have the story topper. The story topper listens to another person's experience as a cue for their own, often more dramatic story. A colleague mentions, "I had such a long flight. I was delayed for 2 hours on the tarmac." The story topper sees this as a competition. You think that's bad, they jump in. "Let me tell you about my trip last year. We were stuck on the tarmac for 6 hours. They ran out of water, and a baby was crying the entire time. It was a nightmare." The story topper has hijacked the conversation. They have taken the focus off the other person and put it squarely on themselves. The original speaker is left feeling diminished, as if their own experience wasn't valid or interesting enough. This is a subtle form of conversational narcissism, and it is a powerful repellent to connection. Then there is the rebutter. The rebutter listens for the express purpose of disagreeing. They are not listening to understand. They are listening for flaws in the other person's logic. They treat every conversation like a debate to be won. Someone says, "I really think this new marketing strategy is going to be effective." The rebutter is already shaking their head. "No, that will never work," they declare. You're not considering the demographic shift. The data from last quarter clearly shows that the rebutter creates an adversarial environment. People quickly learn that sharing an opinion with them is not a collaborative act, but an invitation to a fight. They become hesitant to open up, and conversations remain stuck at a superficial, defensive level. Finally, there is the distracted listener. This is perhaps the most common and insidious form of bad listening in our modern age. The distracted listener might be physically present, but their mind is elsewhere. They are glancing at their phone every 30 seconds. They are looking over your shoulder to see who else is in the room. Their eyes glaze over as they think about their grocery list or an email they need to send. They might nod and say, "Uh-huh," at the right moments, but there is no real presence behind their eyes. This communicates a profound level of disrespect. It says, "Whatever is happening on this screen or in my head or across the room is more important than you." It makes the speaker feel boring and completely insignificant. Do you see yourself in any of these roles? Most of us have been guilty of all of them at some point. These are not signs that we are bad people. They are signs that we are running on conversational autopilot. We are using ingrained habits that we have picked up over a lifetime. The goal now is to switch off that autopilot and take manual control. We are going to replace those connection-destroying habits with a toolkit of powerful presence-building techniques. This is the practical, actionable part of the chapter. These are the tools you will start using today. The first and most fundamental tool in your new active listening toolkit is something incredibly simple, yet profoundly effective. I call it the sacred pause. When someone finishes speaking, most of us feel an immediate pressure to fill the silence. That gap in the conversation feels awkward and empty, so we rush in with our own words. The sacred pause is the practice of resisting that urge. When the other person finishes their thought, I want you to deliberately and consciously wait for 1 full second before you respond. 1 second. It will feel longer to you than it does to them. But in that 1 second, several magical things happen. First, you give the other person a chance to add a final thought. Often, the most important part of what someone wants to say comes out after a small pause, when they feel they have the space to continue. Second, it proves to them that you are not just waiting for your turn to talk. You are actually processing what they just said. You are thinking about their words. It is a non-verbal signal of respect and thoughtfulness. Third, it gives you, the listener, a moment to formulate a much better response. Instead of blurting out the first thing that comes to your mind, you have a split second to consider what you want to say. Is it a question? Is it a statement of empathy? The pause allows you to be intentional rather than reactive. Let's practice this right now in our minds. Imagine a friend says to you, "I finally finished that big project I was working on." The autopilot response is to immediately say, "Oh, great! What are you working on next?" Or, "That's good, I just finished a huge project too." Now imagine your friend says the same thing, "I finally finished that big project I was working on." And you just look at them, hold their gaze warmly and wait. One beat, 1001, then you respond. It's a tiny change, but it completely alters the dynamic of the conversation. It creates a space of calm and presence. Start practicing the sacred pause today in your conversations. Notice how it feels. Notice how people respond to you. It is a game changer. The second tool is the mirror. This is a technique used by top hostage negotiators, therapists, and salespeople, and it is astonishingly simple. Mirroring is the act of repeating the last few words, or the most important few words, of what someone just said, in a questioning tone. It sounds like this. Your colleague says, "I've been staring at this spreadsheet for 3 hours, and I just can't get the numbers to add up." Your mirroring response would be, "The numbers won't add up." Then you stay silent and wait. Or your partner says, "I'm just so tired of juggling the kids' schedules and my work deadlines. I feel like I'm constantly dropping the ball." Your response, dropping the ball? It feels almost too simple to work, but it is incredibly powerful. What you are doing is validating their statement and encouraging them to elaborate without inserting your own opinion or story. It is a verbal invitation that says, "I hear you. Please tell me more." When you mirror someone, their brain sees it as a sign of empathy and rapport. It makes them feel safe to continue, to dig deeper into their thoughts and feelings. 9 times out of 10, they will fill the space you have created by expanding on their point, often revealing the real root of their issue. It is a way of guiding the conversation deeper, using only their own words. The third tool is the summary. This is where you take a moment to paraphrase what the other person has said in your own words. This is a crucial step to ensure that you are truly understanding them, not just hearing them. It is also an incredible gift to the speaker, as it shows them that you have been paying close attention. A good summary statement often starts with phrases like, "So if I'm understanding you correctly," or "It sounds like what you're saying is," or "Let me see if I've got this right." For example, after a friend has spent 5 minutes describing a complicated issue with their landlord, you might say, "Okay, so let me see if I've got this right. The landlord promised to fix the leak 2 weeks ago, but he hasn't shown up, and now you're worried about water damage to the floor, and you're not sure whether you should call him again or send a formal letter. Is that about right?" When you do this, one of 2 things will happen. Either the person will say, "Yes, exactly," and they will feel a profound sense of being heard and understood, or they will say, "Well, not exactly," and they will correct your misunderstanding. Both of these outcomes are fantastic. The first builds massive rapport. The second prevents a miscommunication and allows you to get on the same page. Do not be afraid of getting the summary wrong. The act of trying to understand is what matters. This tool is particularly useful in arguments or disagreements. Taking the time to accurately summarize the other person's position before you state your own can de-escalate tension and turn a fight into a collaboration. The fourth and perhaps most advanced tool in this section is the label. This involves listening not just for the words and the facts, but for the underlying emotions. You are trying to identify the feeling behind the story. This is a core skill of emotional intelligence. Once you have a guess as to what that feeling is, you gently offer it as a label. It sounds like this. "It seems like you're feeling really disappointed about that," or "It sounds like you were incredibly proud of that accomplishment," or "I can imagine you must have felt very frustrated in that situation." Notice the use of tentative language like "it seems like" or "it sounds like." This is not a declaration. It is a gentle offering. You are holding up a mirror to their emotional state. This technique is so powerful because we humans are often not fully aware of our own emotions. We feel a messy jumble of anger, sadness, and anxiety, but we can't untangle it. When someone else can accurately name our feeling, it's like a light switching on in a dark room. There's a famous neuroscience study by Matthew Lieberman at UCLA that shows what happens in the brain when we do this. He found that when people were shown a picture of an angry or fearful face, the activity in their amygdala, the brain's alarm center, spiked. But when they were asked to simply label the emotion they were seeing, saying the word angry or fearful, the activity in the amygdala calmed down, and activity in their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with rational thought, increased. In other words, simply naming an emotion helps to tame it. When you label someone's feeling, you are literally helping them to regulate their own emotions. This creates an incredible sense of trust and safety. You become a person who doesn't just hear their words but understands their heart. These 4 tools, the sacred pause, the mirror, the summary, and the label, form the core of your active listening practice. They are your new conversational habits. But listening is only half of the equation. The other half is what you do to encourage the other person to speak in the first place. This brings us to the art of the question. Likable, charismatic people are masters of the question. They are endlessly curious. They are gentle detectives of the human experience. They understand that a great question can unlock a fascinating story, a hidden passion, or a deep insight. They also understand that not all questions are created equal. Most of our daily questions are what we call closed questions. These are questions that can be answered with a simple yes, no, or a single piece of data. Did you have a good weekend? Are you busy today? Do you like this restaurant? While these questions have their place, they are conversation killers. They are like hitting a tennis ball directly into the net. The rally is over. The goal is to start asking open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. They invite stories, opinions, and feelings. They begin with words like what, how, why, or phrases like tell me about. They are like a perfect serve in tennis, setting the other person up for a great return. Let's transform those closed questions into open ones. Instead of did you have a good weekend, ask what was the highlight of your weekend. The first question gets a yes or no. The second question invites a story. Instead of are you busy today, ask what's the most interesting thing you're working on today. The first question gets a one-word answer. The second sparks a conversation about their work and passions. Instead of do you like this restaurant, ask what's your favorite thing about this place. You are moving from data collection to story gathering. This is a skill that requires practice. You need to build a mental arsenal of great open-ended questions that you can deploy in any situation. Let's create a list you can start with. Think of these as your conversational Swiss Army knife. Questions for getting to know someone. What's the story behind your name? What's a project you're really excited about right now, in or out of work? Aside from work, what are you passionate about? What's a piece of music or a movie that has had a big impact on you? What's the best advice you've ever received? Questions for deepening a conversation. What was that like for you? This is one of the most powerful questions you can ask after someone shares an experience. How did you get into that line of work? What was the biggest challenge you faced in that situation? What did you learn from that experience? Tell me more about that. This simple phrase is a powerful encouragement. Questions that show curiosity and respect. What's a common misconception about your profession? What's something you wish more people understood about a topic they are an expert in? You have such a great eye for design. How did you develop that skill? Your homework is to choose 3 of these questions and make it your mission to ask them in your conversations over the next week. See what happens. Watch how people light up when you ask a question that shows you are genuinely interested in their story, not just in making small talk. You will be amazed at the depth and quality of the conversations you can have, even with people you have just met. Finally, we come to the third part of connection, making people feel remembered. As the legendary writer and speaker Dale Carnegie said, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Remembering and using someone's name is a fundamental sign of respect. It signals that you see them as an individual, not just a faceless person in a crowd." We all know the sinking feeling of talking to someone who has clearly forgotten our name. And we all know the small thrill of being greeted by name by someone we only met briefly. So why are we so bad at remembering names? It's not because we have bad memories, it's because we have untrained memories. The issue is that we are not really listening when we hear a name for the first time. When someone says, "Hi, I'm Jennifer," our brain is often busy thinking, "Okay, I have to say my name now. I hope my handshake isn't too sweaty. What should I say next?" The name Jennifer goes in one ear and out the other because we were never truly present for it. The first step to remembering names is to make a conscious decision to listen. When someone introduces themselves, stop everything else you are doing. Look at them. Hear the name. The next step is to use a simple memory technique based on a phenomenon called the Baker-Baker paradox. This psychological finding shows that you are far more likely to remember that a man's job is a baker than you are to remember that his last name is Baker. Why? Because the word baker as a profession comes loaded with mental images and associations. A white hat, the smell of bread, flour on an apron. The name baker is abstract. It has no hooks for your memory to grab onto. The trick then is to deliberately create a hook for the name. When you meet Jennifer, you might imagine her wearing a necklace made of jewels, for Jen Jewels. If you meet a man named Paul, you might imagine him climbing St. Paul's Cathedral. The image can be silly. In fact, the sillier and more vivid, the better, because our brains are wired to remember strange and unusual images. Another technique is to immediately use the name back in the conversation. "It's great to meet you, Jennifer. So, Jennifer, what do you do?" Then, when you are leaving the conversation, make a point of using their name again. "It was a pleasure talking with you, Jennifer." This repetition helps to move the name from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. This principle of remembering extends far beyond names. It applies to any detail someone shares with you. Charismatic people have a way of remembering the small stuff. They remember that your daughter was trying out for the school play. They remember that you were nervous about a presentation. They remember that you were planning a trip to the mountains. Then the next time they see you, they follow up. "Hey, how did your daughter's play tryout go? How did that big presentation end up going?" This simple act of remembering and following up is incredibly powerful. It shows that you didn't just listen to them in the moment, you carried their story with you. It makes them feel valued on a profound level. How can you do this in a practical way? If you are in a professional setting, it is perfectly acceptable to take notes after a meeting. You can have a document or a note on your phone for important contacts where you jot down a few personal details. Michael has 2 sons, loves to ski, planning a trip to Colorado. This isn't creepy. It's caring. It's a system for being more thoughtful. For your personal life, it is about being present in the conversation. When your friend tells you about their child's tryout, make a mental note because you genuinely care. The desire to remember has to come from a place of real interest. Let's bring everything in this chapter together. We have learned that listening is not a passive activity, but a powerful, loud action. We have diagnosed our common bad listening habits, like the problem solver and the story topper. We have built a new toolkit of active listening techniques, the sacred pause to create presence, the mirror to encourage elaboration, the summary to confirm understanding, and the label to connect with emotion. We have learned to replace conversation-killing closed questions with story-generating open-ended questions. And finally, we have understood the profound impact of making people feel remembered by mastering their names and recalling the details of their lives. Your mission for this week is to become a listening detective. Your goal in every conversation is not to be interesting, but to be interested. It is not to be understood, but to understand. Choose one of the tools we discussed, maybe the sacred pause or the mirror, and try to use it in every conversation you have for one day. Then the next day, try another. Notice the difference. Notice how people open up to you. Notice how conversations that used to feel like hard work now feel like fascinating explorations. You are building a new muscle. At first, it will feel conscious and maybe a little clunky, but with practice, it will become your new autopilot. You will become the person who makes others feel seen, heard, and valued. You will become the person people love to talk to. And it all starts with the simple, generous, and powerful act of closing your mouth and truly opening your ears. You have the tools. Now it is time to get to work. Chapter 3. The Spark. Adding your color to the conversation. In our last chapter, we undertook a deep dive into the art of listening. We learned that by shifting from waiting to talk to truly seeking to understand, we can create a powerful sense of connection and rapport. By using tools like the pause, the mirror, and the label, and by asking open-ended questions, you have learned how to make other people feel fascinating. You have learned how to create a warm, inviting space in a conversation. Now, a crucial question arises. What do you do when it is your turn to step into that space? How do you contribute to the conversation in a way that is authentic, engaging, and memorable? This is a critical point in our journey. Some people, after learning the power of listening, can make the mistake of becoming a passive conversational sponge. They become so focused on asking questions and listening that they never share anything of themselves. This can lead to an imbalance where the other person feels like they are being interrogated rather than having a conversation. A great conversation is a dance, a give and take. Listening is how you learn the rhythm of your dance partner. Sharing is how you contribute your own steps to the dance. This chapter is about learning those steps. It is about adding your unique spark, your color, to the canvas of the conversation. It is about moving from being an excellent listener to being an excellent conversationalist. And we will do this by focusing on 3 key areas: the power of storytelling, the language beyond words, and the art of genuine appreciation. Let's begin with the single most effective way to share who you are and connect with another human being: telling a story. Our brains are not built to remember facts, figures, and data points. They are built to remember stories. For tens of thousands of years before written language, stories were our primary technology for transferring knowledge, culture, and values. A story about a hunter who wandered too far from the tribe and encountered a lion was far more effective at teaching a lesson than a simple rule like, "Don't wander too far." Stories engage our emotions, our imagination, and our senses. They create a shared experience. When you tell a story, you are not just transmitting information, you are inviting the listener into your world. A well-told story can create a bond between 2 strangers in a matter of minutes. Now, when I say storytelling, many people get intimidated. They think they need a grand, epic tale of adventure or a perfectly polished, hilarious anecdote that will have the whole room in stitches. They think, "My life is too boring. I don't have any good stories." This is a limiting belief that we need to discard right now. The best stories for building connection are not the epic ones. They are the small, relatable, human ones. The story of the time you tried to bake a cake and it came out looking like a melted brick. The story of the funny misunderstanding you had with a cashier. The story of the moment you felt a tiny spark of inspiration for a new hobby. These small stories are powerful because they are relatable. They reveal your personality, your sense of humor, and your humanity. They are glimpses into your authentic self. Remember the 3 pillars of you exercise from our first chapter. Your strengths, your experiences, and your passions. That is your personal story bank. That is the wellspring from which you will draw your contributions to the conversation. You are not trying to impress people with your stories. You are trying to connect with them. There is a huge difference in intention. An impressive story creates distance. A relatable story builds a bridge. So, how do you craft and tell a compelling small story? Let's break down a simple, effective structure. Most good stories, no matter how small, have 3 parts. Part 1 is the setup. This is where you quickly establish the normal, everyday context. It's the before picture. For example, "I was at the grocery store yesterday just trying to get my shopping done for the week." Or, "I was in a really important video call with my team this morning." The setup should be brief and to the point. Part 2 is the pivot. This is the moment where something unexpected happens. It's the twist, the problem, the surprise. It's what makes the story a story. For example, "And I reached for a carton of milk, but my hand slipped and it went flying through the air like a rocket." Or, "And just as my boss asked me a direct question, my cat decided it was the perfect time to jump up onto my keyboard and walk across the screen." The pivot is the heart of the story. Part 3 is the punchline. This is the resolution or the takeaway. It's what happened in the end, and more importantly, what you learned or how you felt about it. For example, "And this carton of milk exploded all over the floor, and a toddler standing nearby just looked at me and started clapping. like it was the best show he'd ever seen. I was so embarrassed, but I couldn't help but laugh. Or, and my cat's tail typed a whole line of gibberish into the chat, and my whole team just burst out laughing. It completely broke the tension of the meeting. The punchline is what gives the story its meaning and makes it relatable. It often reveals your ability to laugh at yourself, to find the good in a bad situation, or to learn a small lesson. Let's look at this structure in action. Imagine you're in a conversation and someone mentions that they are feeling stressed at work. The bad response would be to jump in with a story that tops theirs. You think you're stressed? Let me tell you. A good response after listening and validating their feelings would be to share a small, relatable story to build solidarity. You could say, "I know what you mean. The pressure can be intense. It reminds me of this one time last month." The setup. I was preparing for a huge presentation, and I'd stayed up all night working on it. I was so nervous. The pivot. I walked into the conference room, plugged in my laptop, and the screen just went completely black. My entire presentation was gone. I felt this wave of pure panic, the punchline. But then I just took a deep breath, looked at the client and said, "Well, it seems technology has decided I need to do this the old-fashioned way." I ended up drawing my key points on a whiteboard, and you know what? It turned out to be one of the best presentations I've ever given. It forced me to be more conversational and less robotic. It taught me that sometimes our biggest disasters can be blessings in disguise. Look at what that story accomplishes. It doesn't try to one-up the other person. It validates their feeling of stress, "I know what you mean." It shows vulnerability. "I felt this wave of pure panic." It reveals a positive quality, resilience, without having to say, "I'm a resilient person." And it ends with a hopeful, interesting takeaway. You have just built a significant bridge of connection. You have shared a part of your authentic self. Your action step for this section is to become a story collector. I want you to go back to your 3 pillars of you, and for each pillar, try to identify one small story. A story that shows your sense of humor. A story about a time you failed and what you learned. A story about how you discovered your passion for gardening. Write them down. Just a few sentences for each, following the setup, pivot, punchline structure. You don't need to memorize them. The act of identifying and structuring them will embed them in your mind. This is your starting story bank. The more you do this, the more you will start to see your own life as a collection of stories waiting to be shared. Now, sharing your stories and ideas is crucial, but it is only part of the message you are sending. A huge portion of how people perceive you, how they feel in your presence, has nothing to do with the words you say. It has everything to do with the language beyond words, your body language and your vocal tone. You could be telling the most fascinating story in the world, but if your body language is closed off and your voice is a flat monotone, the message people will receive is, "I am bored and I don't want to be here." To be truly charismatic, your non-verbal communication must be congruent with your verbal message. Let's start with your body language. This is the physical signal you send out to the world about your state of mind. One of the most important concepts in charismatic body language is the idea of being open versus closed. Closed body language involves crossing your arms, hunching your shoulders, covering your torso, or angling your body away from the person you are speaking with. These are subconscious signals of defense, discomfort, or disinterest. They create a physical and psychological barrier between you and the other person. Open body language is the opposite. It involves keeping your arms uncrossed, your hands visible, your shoulders back, and your torso and feet pointed towards the person you are engaged with. This signals confidence, warmth, and a willingness to connect. Think of your body as a broadcasting tower. What are you broadcasting? The next time you're in a conversation, do a quick mental check-in. Are my arms crossed? Am I hunched over my phone? Am I facing the person? Making a conscious effort to adopt an open posture can have a remarkable effect not only on how others perceive you, but on how you feel yourself. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy's famous research on power posing showed that adopting an expansive, open posture for just 2 minutes can actually increase feelings of confidence and decrease feelings of stress. Your body can change your mind. Before you walk into a social situation, take a moment to stand in an open, confident posture. Stretch your arms out, stand tall, occupy your space. This small ritual can shift your entire mindset from anxious to assured. Another powerful body language technique is mirroring. Not the verbal mirroring we talked about in the last chapter, but physical mirroring. This is the subconscious tendency of humans to imitate the body language of people they are in rapport with. If one person leans forward, the other will lean forward. If one person takes a sip of their drink, the other might do the same a few moments later. This is driven by what scientists call mirror neurons in our brain, which are linked to empathy. You can consciously use this to build rapport. If you are talking to someone and you notice they have a relaxed posture, try to adopt a similarly relaxed posture. If they are animated and using their hands, you can allow yourself to be a bit more expressive with your own gestures. The key here is to be subtle. You are not trying to be a perfect mime. You are simply trying to match their energy and posture in a natural way. This sends a powerful subconscious signal that says, "I am like you. We are on the same team." Next, let's talk about eye contact. This is a source of great anxiety for many people. Too little eye contact can make you seem shy, untrustworthy, or disinterested. Too much can feel intense, aggressive, or just plain creepy. So, what is the right amount? The key is to aim for what I call warm and relaxed eye contact. You are not trying to win a staring contest. You are trying to signal that you are paying attention. A great rule of thumb is to maintain eye contact for about 4 to 5 seconds at a time, then briefly glance away at something neutral, like your coffee cup or a point just over their shoulder before re-engaging. This feels natural and comfortable for both people. A wonderful technique for making your eye contact feel warmer and less intense is the triangle technique. Instead of locking onto one of their eyes, let your gaze move gently in a small triangle between their left eye, their right eye, and their mouth. This constant small movement softens your gaze and makes you appear more engaged and empathetic. When you are listening, your eye contact should be more frequent. When you are speaking, it is natural to look away more often as you gather your thoughts. The most important thing is to make sure you are making direct eye contact when they are sharing something important or when you are delivering the key point of your own story. This is how you punctuate a conversation with presence. Now let's turn to your voice. Your voice is an instrument and charismatic people know how to play it. They are not monotone. A monotone voice, where you speak on a single pitch without variation, is the auditory equivalent of a flat line on a heart monitor. It signals a lack of energy and emotion, and it is incredibly boring to listen to. To be engaging, you need to introduce vocal variety. This means playing with the 3 Ps: pitch, pace, and power. Pitch refers to the highness or lowness of your voice. An engaging speaker uses a range of pitches. They might raise their pitch slightly when asking a question or describing something exciting, and lower it when making a serious or important point. A simple trick to increase your vocal warmth is to speak with a slight smile. You don't have to have a full grin, but just lifting the corners of your mouth slightly changes the physical shape of your vocal tract and adds a pleasant, warm quality to your tone. People can literally hear a smile. Pace is the speed at which you talk. Nervous people tend to talk very quickly, rushing through their sentences as if they are trying to get it over with. Confident, charismatic people are comfortable with the pace of their speech. They speed up when telling an exciting part of a story, and crucially, they slow down when they want to emphasize an important word or idea. They are also not afraid of the pause. Using a deliberate pause before or after a key phrase is a powerful way to draw attention to it and give your listener a moment to absorb its meaning. Power or volume is the loudness of your voice. This isn't about shouting, it's about speaking from your diaphragm, with enough volume to be heard clearly and confidently. People who mumble or speak too softly often come across as timid or unsure of themselves. Practice speaking with intention, projecting your voice so that the person you are talking to can hear you without straining. How do you practice all of this? The best way is to record yourself. Take your phone and record yourself reading a paragraph from a book or telling one of your small stories. Then listen back to it. Be an objective coach. Is your voice monotone? Are you speaking too quickly? Do you sound confident? It might feel awkward at first, but this is the vocal equivalent of looking in a mirror. It is the fastest way to identify the areas you need to work on. Finally, we arrive at the third element of adding your spark to a conversation: the art of genuine appreciation. In a world that is often critical and cynical, a person who can give a sincere, well-placed compliment is a rare and welcome presence. However, most people are terrible at giving compliments. Their compliments are either too generic, "nice shirt," or too focused on something the person had no control over, "you have beautiful eyes." While these are not bad things to say, they don't create a lasting impact. A truly charismatic compliment is one that is specific, and it acknowledges a person's effort, choice, or character. Let's break down the formula for a powerful compliment. Instead of good presentation, which is generic, try something specific that acknowledges effort. "I was so impressed by your presentation. The way you broke down those complex data points with those clear visuals must have taken a lot of work. It really helped everyone understand the situation." See the difference? The first is forgettable. The second makes the person feel seen, appreciated, and competent. Instead of complimenting a trait, compliment a choice. Instead of "you're so smart," which can feel a bit abstract, try "I really admire the way you think through problems." The question you asked in that meeting was so insightful. It made all of us see the issue from a new angle. You are complimenting their process, their mind at work, which is far more meaningful. To construct a great compliment, think about these 3 steps. First, be specific. What exactly did they do? Second, state the positive impact it had on you or others. How did it help? What did it make you feel? Third, if appropriate, tie it to a positive character trait. Let's try it. Your colleague stays late to help you finish a project. The compliment could be, "Thank you so much for staying late to help me with that report." Specific. "It honestly saved me hours of work and a lot of stress." Impact. "That was incredibly generous and supportive of you." Character. That is a compliment that person will remember for a long time. Just as important as giving a compliment is learning how to receive one. How many times has someone complimented you and you immediately deflected it? Someone says, "I love your sweater," and you say, "Oh, this old thing? I got it on sale." Or someone says, "You did a fantastic job on that project," and you say, "Oh, it was nothing, the whole team helped." When you deflect a compliment, you are awkwardly tossing back a gift that someone has just tried to give you. It can make the giver feel rejected. The most charismatic and gracious way to receive a compliment is simple. Just smile, make eye contact, and say, "Thank you. That's really kind of you to say." That's it. Accept the gift. Let it land. This chapter has been about turning the focus back just a little towards you. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a generous, contributory way. We have learned that you don't need epic tales to be a great storyteller. You just need to share the small, relatable stories of your life using the simple setup, pivot, punchline structure. We have learned that your body and your voice are powerful instruments of connection. And by using open body language, warm eye contact, and vocal variety, you can broadcast confidence and warmth. And we have learned that a specific, sincere compliment is a powerful tool for making others feel valued, and that receiving appreciation with simple grace is a mark of true self-assurance. Your life is not boring. You have stories to tell. You have a unique perspective to share. You have the capacity to make others feel appreciated. The listening skills you learned in the last chapter create the space for connection. The sharing skills you have learned in this chapter are how you step into that space and build a bridge. It is the combination of these two, the listening and the sharing, the give and the take, that creates the beautiful dance of a truly charismatic conversation. Your task now is to practice. The next time you are in a conversation, challenge yourself to share one small, relatable story. Pay attention to your posture, and look for an opportunity to give one person a genuine, specific compliment. Start adding your color to the world. You might be surprised at how beautiful the picture becomes. Chapter 4. Charisma in Action, Navigating the Real World. We have spent the last 3 chapters building our foundation. In Chapter 1, we established a new, empowering mindset, understanding that charisma is a learnable skill built on authenticity and a focus on others. In Chapter 2, we mastered the powerful and often overlooked art of active listening. learning how to make people feel truly seen and heard. In Chapter 3, we learned how to add our own color to the conversation, sharing our stories and appreciation in a way that builds bridges of connection. We have, in essence, designed and built a powerful vehicle for social connection. We understand the engineering, we have learned the controls, and we have filled the tank with the fuel of genuine interest. But a car is useless if it stays in the garage. This chapter is about taking that vehicle out onto the road. This is where the theory meets reality. We are going to navigate the most common and often the most challenging social situations you will encounter. The dreaded small talk, the nerve-wracking process of joining and leaving a group, and the delicate art of handling disagreements with grace. These are the real-world driving tests of your newfound skills. Up until now, we have been learning in a safe, conceptual space. Now we are going to get practical. We are going to arm you with strategies, scripts, and mindsets so that you can walk into any room, any conversation, any situation with a sense of confidence and ease. It is time to put charisma into action. Let's begin with the social ritual that strikes more fear into the hearts of people than almost any other: small talk. For many, the very words small talk conjure up images of excruciatingly awkward conversations about the weather, trapped in a conversational purgatory with no escape. We see it as a meaningless, superficial chore that we must endure before we can either get to a real conversation or make a polite escape. This entire framing is wrong, and it is the source of our anxiety. We must completely redefine what small talk is. Small talk is not the barrier to a real conversation. It is the gateway to it. It is the handshake before a business deal. It is the appetizer before a magnificent meal. It is the airport runway that a jet needs before it can soar into the clouds. You cannot have a deep, meaningful connection without first establishing a safe, comfortable foundation. That is the true purpose of small talk. It is a low-risk, collaborative process of finding common ground. It is a reconnaissance mission to discover shared interests, experiences, or perspectives. When you reframe small talk as an opportunity for discovery, rather than a test of your wit, the pressure dissolves, and it can even become fun. To become a master of this gateway, we are going to use a simple, memorable, and incredibly effective three-step formula. I call it the ARE method. ARE: anchor, reveal, encourage. This is your roadmap for starting a conversation with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Let's break down each component in detail. The first step is to anchor. An anchor is a comment about your shared immediate reality. It is something you and the other person are both experiencing in that very moment. The reason this is such a brilliant way to start a conversation is that it is completely safe and non-invasive. You are not asking a personal question or making a bold statement. You are simply observing something you both have in common. This immediately establishes a tiny piece of common ground. The world of potential anchors is limitless, but they generally fall into a few categories. You can anchor on the situation. For example, if you are at a party, you could say, "This music is fantastic, they have a great DJ." If you're at a conference, "Wow, this is a huge turnout. The keynote speaker was really interesting." If you are in line at a coffee shop, "This line is moving surprisingly fast today." Another category is the environment. You can anchor on the venue, the decor, or the weather. "This is a beautiful venue. I love what they've done with the lighting." Or the classic, but still effective if genuine, "I can't believe how beautiful the weather is today after all that rain." The key is to be observant. Look around you. What do you and the person next to you share? A long wait? A delicious-looking plate of appetizers? A confusing piece of art on the wall? Anything can be an anchor as long as it is shared. Your mission is to find one. Let's look at some examples across different contexts. At a networking event. This is a great event. It's my first time at this particular one. At a local community meeting. There are a lot more people here tonight than I expected. At the dog park. Your dog has so much energy. It's amazing to watch. At the grocery store waiting at the checkout. That's an interesting looking vegetable. I've never known how to cook with that. The anchor is your gentle knock on the conversational door. It is low pressure for you to say and low pressure for them to respond to. The second step is to reveal. This is where you add a tiny low-risk piece of personal information related to your anchor. This is a crucial step that most people miss. They anchor and then they wait, putting all the pressure on the other person to carry the conversation forward. The reveal is you doing your part. You are offering a small piece of yourself, which makes you seem more human and gives the other person something to connect with. A reveal is not a deep secret or a long, complicated story. It is a simple, declarative statement. It is the bridge between the shared observation and a real conversation. Let's pair a reveal with each of the anchors we just created. The party anchor. This music is fantastic. They have a great DJ. The reveal. It actually reminds me of a playlist I've been building for a road trip I'm planning. The conference anchor. Wow, this is a huge turnout. The keynote speaker was really interesting. The reveal. I was particularly struck by her point about the future of marketing. The coffee shop anchor. This line is moving surprisingly fast today. The reveal, which is great because I'm running a little behind for a meeting. The dog park anchor. Your dog has so much energy, it's amazing to watch. The reveal. My dog at home is the complete opposite. He's more of a professional napper. Do you see what is happening here? The reveal adds a layer of personality and information. You are no longer just a person commenting on the music. You are a person who is planning a road trip. You are not just an attendee. You are someone who thinks about the future of marketing. This small piece of information gives the other person a hook. It gives them something easy and natural to ask you about. You are making it easy for them to have a conversation with you. The third and final step of the AR method is to encourage. This is where you hand the conversational ball over to the other person by asking a simple, open-ended question. This is a direct invitation for them to contribute. It shows that you are not just there to talk about yourself, but that you are interested in their perspective as well. This is where the open-ended questions we practiced in Chapter 2 become so vital. Let's complete our ARE sequences. The party sequence. Anchor. This music is fantastic. They have a great DJ. Reveal. It actually reminds me of a playlist I've been building for a road trip I'm planning. Encourage. What kind of music have you been listening to lately? The conference sequence. Anchor. Wow, this is a huge turnout. The keynote speaker was really interesting. Reveal. I was particularly struck by her point about the future of marketing. Encourage. What was your biggest takeaway from her talk? The coffee shop sequence. Anchor. This line is moving surprisingly fast today. Reveal. Which is great, because I'm running a little behind for a meeting. Encourage. How is your day shaping up? The dog park sequence. Anchor. Your dog has so much energy, it's amazing to watch. Reveal. My dog at home is the complete opposite. He's more of a professional napper. Encourage. What kind of dog is he? Anchor, reveal, encourage. It is a simple, elegant, and universally applicable formula for turning silence into connection. It takes the guesswork and the anxiety out of starting a conversation. Your homework for this section is to become an ARE practitioner. Over the next week, I want you to consciously try to start 3 conversations using this method. It could be with a barista, a co-worker, or someone at a social event. Just try the formula. See how it feels. Notice how people respond. You will find that it is a remarkably effective way to turn strangers into acquaintances and acquaintances into the beginnings of something more. Of course, starting the conversation is only the first challenge. An equally daunting task for many is navigating groups. How do you approach a circle of people who are already talking? How do you join a conversation that is already in progress? And just as importantly, how do you leave a conversation gracefully without feeling rude or awkward? Let's tackle the art of entering and exiting. The fear of approaching a group is deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. For our ancestors, being rejected by the group could literally be a death sentence. That primal fear of exclusion still echoes in our brains today. It is amplified by the spotlight effect we discussed in Chapter 1. We feel that if we approach, all conversation will stop, and everyone will turn and stare at us, judging us. The reality is far less dramatic. Most people are kind and are happy to welcome another person into the conversation. The key is to do it in a way that is smooth and non-disruptive. Here is your strategy for entering a group conversation. Step 1. Observe from a distance. Do not just barge in. Stand near the group for a moment, and most importantly, listen. What is the topic of conversation? What is the emotional tone? Are they laughing and telling light-hearted stories, or are they having a serious, intense discussion? You would not want to jump into a serious conversation with a silly joke. Your goal is to get a feel for the room. Step 2. Identify an open group. Look at the body language of the people in the circle. A closed group is one where everyone is standing very close together, shoulder to shoulder, with no physical gaps. They are often leaning in intently. This can be a sign of a very private or serious conversation, and it might be best to let them be. An open group has physical space between the people. Their bodies are angled slightly outwards. This is a non-verbal invitation. It says, "There is room for others here. Look for the open groups." Step 3. The approach. Once you have identified an open group and you have a sense of their topic, you can make your approach. Walk towards the group slowly and confidently. As you get closer, try to make eye contact with the person who seems the most friendly or has the most open body language. A simple, warm smile is your best tool here. Step 4. The entry. You have a few options for your entry line. The easiest is to simply listen and wait for a natural pause in the conversation. When there is a lull, you can add a relevant comment or question. It could be something like, "Excuse me for jumping in, but I couldn't help but overhear you talking about your trip to Italy. I was there last year. What part did you visit?" You are using a piece of their conversation as your anchor. Another option, if you know one person in the group, is to use them as your entry point. You can approach, make eye contact with that person, give them a small wave or a nod, and they will often naturally bring you into the conversation. "Hey everyone, this is my friend John. If the thought of all this is still too intimidating, here is the secret weapon for entering any room. Find the person who is standing alone. There is always someone at a party or an event who is feeling just as awkward as you are. They are standing in the corner, looking at their phone, wishing someone would talk to them. Be that person. By approaching them, you are not being an intruder. You are being a rescuer. You can walk up, smile, and use the ARE method. This is a great party, isn't it? Anchor. I only know a couple of people here, so I'm trying to be brave and mingle. Reveal. How do you know the host? Encourage. You have just made a connection and potentially a new friend for the evening. Now, instead of being one person alone, you are two people together, and it is far easier for a pair to then join a larger group. Now let's talk about the exit. Many of us have found ourselves trapped in a conversation that has run its course, or with a person who will not stop talking. We stay there, nodding and smiling, because we are terrified of seeming rude. Learning how to exit a conversation gracefully is not rude. It is a necessary social skill. It respects your own time and allows both you and the other person to move on and have new conversations. Giving yourself permission to leave is the first and most important step. The key to a graceful exit is to be warm, appreciative, and clear. Do not make up an elaborate fake excuse. People can often see right through it. A simple, honest statement is almost always the best policy. Here is a menu of graceful exit lines you can use. The "It was a pleasure" exit. This is a classic for a reason. As the conversation reaches a natural lull, you simply smile and say, "Well, it has been so great talking with you, Sarah. I'm going to go mingle a bit more, but it was a real pleasure to meet you." The key components are addressing them by name, stating your appreciation, "Great talking with you," clearly stating your intention, "I'm going to go mingle," and ending with a final pleasantry. The mission-based exit. This provides a gentle reason for your departure. "I've really enjoyed this chat, but I promised myself I would say hello to the host before things get too crazy. It was wonderful to meet you." Or, "I'm going to go grab another drink. It was great talking with you." This gives a soft, logical reason for you to move on. The future link exit. This is great if you have made a genuine connection and want to see the person again. I could talk about this all night, but I don't want to monopolize you. I'd love to continue this conversation sometime. Are you on LinkedIn? This both ends the current conversation and opens the door for a future one. The handoff exit. This is a highly skilled move that is wonderful when you are in a group. You can actually exit by introducing your conversation partner to someone else. "John, it has been great hearing about your project. You know, you should really talk to Maria over there. She works in a similar field. Let me introduce you. You walk them over, make the introduction, and then you have a perfect, graceful opportunity to slip away. Whichever exit line you choose, deliver it with warm body language. Smile. Maintain eye contact. Perhaps offer a handshake. The warmth of your exit is what ensures the other person feels good about the interaction, even as it ends. Practice these lines. Say them out loud to yourself. Having them ready in your mental toolkit will give you the confidence to know that you are never truly trapped. You are always in control. We have now covered the beginning and the end of conversations, but what about the messy middle? What happens when you encounter a topic where you and your conversation partner do not see eye to eye? This brings us to our final action scenario, handling disagreements with charisma. A truly charismatic person is not someone who agrees with everyone. That would make them a sycophant, not a leader. A truly charismatic person is someone who can disagree without being disagreeable. They can state their own opinion with confidence, while making the other person feel respected, not attacked. In a world that is becoming more and more polarized, this skill is not just a social grace, it is a superpower. The first and most important mindset shift is this: a disagreement is not a battle to be won. It is an opportunity to understand a different perspective. If your goal is to win the argument, you have already lost the connection. Your goal should be to understand why the other person believes what they believe, and to share your own perspective in a way that can be heard. The foundation of this skill is something we have already touched upon, but it bears repeating in this context: validation. Before you share your differing opinion, you must first validate the other person's position. This does not mean you agree with them. It simply means you acknowledge that their perspective has some validity from their point of view. You are demonstrating that you have truly listened to them. You can use phrases like, "That's a really interesting point. I can see why you would look at it that way," especially with your experience in that field. Or, "I really appreciate you sharing that with me. It makes sense that you would feel that way given what you went through." Or, "That's a valid concern. A lot of people feel that way." This simple act of validation is like a pressure release valve. It lowers the other person's defenses. It makes them feel heard, which in turn makes them much more likely to hear you. After you have validated their position, you can then state your own, using what are known as I statements. An I statement frames your perspective as your own, rather than as a universal truth or an attack on them. Instead of saying, "You're wrong, that policy will never work," which is a you statement that will immediately put them on the defensive, you can say, "From my perspective, I have some concerns about how that policy might play out. The way I see it is," or instead of, "That's a terrible idea," you can say, "I have a slightly different take on it. I've always thought that." I statements are non-confrontational. They are a way of adding your view to the conversation, not replacing theirs. A powerful structure for a charismatic disagreement is the feel, felt, found method, often used in sales and leadership. It works like this. First, you validate their feeling. "I understand how you feel about this new software. It seems complicated and unnecessary." Then, you share a relatable experience, past tense. "I felt the exact same way when they first introduced it in my old department. I was convinced it was going to slow us down." Then you share your changed perspective, what you found. "But what I found was that after a week of getting used to it, it actually automated a lot of the tedious tasks I used to do, and it ended up saving me a lot of time. It took some getting used to, but it was worth it in the end." This method is incredibly effective because it builds a bridge of empathy before you introduce your different viewpoint. You are not telling them they are wrong, you are sharing a journey of how your own perspective evolved. Another key skill is to find the common ground, no matter how small. Even in the most polarized of disagreements, there is usually a shared value or goal that you can agree on. For example, in a heated debate about a political issue, you might say, "While we might disagree on the best way to get there, I think we can both agree that we want a safe and prosperous future for our children." Finding and stating this common ground reminds both of you that you are on the same team, even if you have different strategies. Finally, a truly charismatic person knows when to disengage. Not every hill is worth dying on. If the other person becomes angry, starts making personal attacks, or is clearly not listening to you, You will not gain anything by continuing the argument. You need to have a graceful exit strategy for a disagreement as well. You can say something like, "It's clear we both feel very passionately about this, and I don't think we're going to see eye to eye on it tonight. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective with me." This allows you to end the conversation while preserving the relationship and the respect. This chapter has been your real-world training manual. We have transformed small talk from a dreaded chore into a game of discovery with the ARE method. We have learned the practical steps to confidently enter and gracefully exit any conversation. And we have equipped ourselves with the tools to navigate disagreements in a way that builds respect, not resentment. These are not just social niceties. They are the skills that allow you to move through the world with a sense of freedom and control. They are the proof that you can handle whatever social situation comes your way. Your task now is to be brave. It is to take these tools and deliberately put yourself in situations where you can practice them. Go to that party you were thinking of skipping. Strike up a conversation with the person next to you in line. Do not shy away from a respectful disagreement. Each time you practice, you are sharpening your skills, building your confidence, and hardwiring charisma into your daily actions. You are no longer just a student of charisma. You are becoming a practitioner. Chapter 5. The Ripple Effect. Living a Likable Life. We have arrived at the final chapter of our journey together. We began by shifting our entire mindset, realizing that charisma is not a gift but a skill, founded on a genuine interest in others. We then built our practical toolkit, mastering the art of deep listening, learning how to share our authentic selves through stories, and finally, applying these skills in real-world scenarios like small talk and disagreements. You now have the knowledge, the tools, and the strategies to transform the quality of your interactions. But this final chapter is about something deeper. It is about moving from doing charisma to being charismatic. It is about integrating these skills so deeply into your character that they become an effortless and authentic part of who you are. This is not about a destination you arrive at, but a new way of living your life. We are going to explore the 3 final, crucial keys to making this transformation permanent: the power of daily consistency, the freedom of social resilience, and the profound true purpose of living a charismatic life. This is where we cement our learning and understand the incredible impact we are about to have, not just on our own lives, but on the lives of everyone we meet. The first key is consistency. There is a universal truth that applies to every meaningful skill in life, whether it is learning an instrument, getting physically fit, or building a business. You cannot achieve mastery through occasional, intense effort. You achieve it through small, consistent daily practice. You do not become a concert pianist by practicing for 12 hours once a month. You do it by practicing for 30 minutes every single day. The same is unequivocally true for social skills. You cannot read this book, get excited, try these techniques out at one party and then expect to be transformed. The real change, the deep, lasting change, happens in the small, seemingly insignificant moments of your everyday life. It happens when you make the conscious choice to practice these skills when the stakes are low. Many people make the mistake of waiting for the big game to try out their new skills. They wait for the important job interview, the first date, or the major presentation. This is a recipe for disaster. When the pressure is on, we do not rise to the occasion. We fall back on our ingrained habits. If your habit is to be quiet and self-conscious, that is what you will do under pressure. The only way to change your default habits is to practice the new ones so frequently that they become second nature. This means turning your entire world into your personal charisma gym. Every single human interaction, no matter how brief, is an opportunity to do one small rep. Think about your average day. How many opportunities for practice do you have? There is the barista who takes your coffee order. There is the security guard you pass in your office lobby. There is the cashier at the grocery store. There is the person walking their dog at the same time as you. There is the delivery driver who brings your package. For most of us, these interactions are purely transactional. We might offer a polite but distracted hello while looking at our phones. We get what we need, and we move on. From this day forward, I want you to see these interactions as the most important training you can do. These are your low-stakes practice sessions. If you have an awkward moment with the barista, who cares? You will likely never see them again, or if you do, they will not remember. This is the perfect safe space to experiment. Let's create a simple training plan. For the next week, I want you to set a small daily micro-challenge for yourself. On Monday, your challenge is to make genuine eye contact and smile at 3 strangers. That is it. Just notice the feeling of doing it. On Tuesday, your challenge is to ask the barista or cashier an open-ended question. Instead of just ordering your coffee, you can say, "Looks busy in here today. What's the craziest drink order you've ever gotten?" On Wednesday, your challenge is to give one genuine, specific compliment to a service worker. "Wow, you handled that huge rush with so much calm and efficiency. That was really impressive to watch." On Thursday, your challenge is to use the mirror technique from Chapter 2 in a conversation with a friend or family member. Just try it once. On Friday, your challenge is to share one small, relatable story in a conversation at work. Do you see how small and manageable these are? Each one is a tiny act of intentional practice, but the power of these actions lies in the compound effect. One of these interactions will not change your life, but if you make this a habit, if you engage in a few of these micro-connections every single day, the cumulative effect over a year will be staggering. It is like saving money. Putting $1 in a jar does not make you rich, but putting $1 in every day for 30 years builds a fortune. Each small positive interaction you initiate builds a tiny deposit in your confidence account. Each time you practice a skill, you strengthen a neural pathway in your brain. You are literally rewiring yourself to be more open, more curious, and more connected. You are moving the skills from the conscious effort part of your brain to the automatic habit part. This is how you move from doing to being. Consistency is the magic ingredient that turns knowledge into skill and skill into character. This consistent practice leads us directly to the second key, social resilience. I want to make a promise to you. As you go out into the world and practice these skills, you will have awkward moments. You will tell a joke that no one laughs at. You will forget someone's name 2 seconds after they have told you. You will have a moment where your mind goes completely blank and you cannot think of a single thing to say. You will trip over a word or over your own feet. These moments are not a sign of failure. They are an inevitable and, in fact, a necessary part of the process. Every single charismatic person you have ever admired has had thousands of these moments. The difference is not that they avoid awkwardness. The difference is that they have learned how to recover from it quickly. They do not let a clumsy moment derail their entire interaction or destroy their self-confidence. They have social resilience. The single biggest factor in your social resilience is the story you tell yourself immediately after an awkward moment happens. Let's say you are in a conversation and you try to tell a story, but you get muddled in the middle and it comes out all wrong. The story in the head of a person with low social resilience goes something like this. "Oh my God, that was terrible. I'm so stupid. I can't even tell a simple story. Everyone here thinks I'm a complete idiot. I should just go home. I'm so awkward." This internal monologue is a spiral of shame. Gaia takes a small, insignificant event and turns it into a sweeping indictment of their entire character. Now let's listen to the story in the head of a person with high social resilience. The same event happens. The story in their head sounds like this. "Whoops, I really botched that story. Oh well, that was a bit clumsy." And then, crucially, their mind moves on. They might even laugh at themselves in the moment and say, "Wow, I have no idea where I was going with that." Anyway, they see the event for what it is, a fleeting moment of clumsiness, not a verdict on their self-worth. You have the power to choose which story you tell yourself. The event itself has no inherent meaning. It is your interpretation of the event that creates your emotional reality. Cultivating this resilience is a practice, just like everything else. It is about learning to be your own best friend. Think about what you would say to a friend who just had an awkward moment. Would you tell them they are a stupid idiot who should go home? Of course not. You would say, "Don't worry about it. It was no big deal. It happens to everyone." You need to learn to direct that same voice of compassion and forgiveness towards yourself. This is the essence of self-compassion, a concept researched extensively by Dr. Kristin Neff. It involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend. When you have an awkward moment, your new internal response should be, "It's okay. That was a little awkward, but I'm learning. Let's try again." There are also practical techniques for recovering from an awkward moment in real time. The most effective is to simply acknowledge it lightly and move on. Let's say you call someone by the wrong name. Instead of cringing and spiraling internally, you can just say with a smile, "I'm so sorry, I just called you Mark, didn't I? It's been a long day. It's Tom, right?" By naming the awkwardness, you rob it of its power. You show that you are confident enough to not take yourself too seriously. Self-deprecating humor is also a powerful tool. If you tell that joke that falls flat, you can just smile and say, "Okay, tough crowd, I'll stick to my day job." This releases the tension in the room and shows that you are not fragile. You are resilient. Remember the pratfall effect from Chapter 1. Your small imperfections do not make you less likable. They make you more human and relatable. Learning to forgive your awkward moments and even embrace them with a sense of humor is not just a coping mechanism. It is an advanced charismatic skill. It signals a deep and unshakable self-acceptance, which is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess. This brings us to our final destination. We have talked about the mindset, the tools, the practice, and the resilience. But why? What is the ultimate purpose of all this? What is the true meaning of charisma? If you have been paying close attention, you already know the answer. The true purpose of becoming more likable and charismatic is not about what you can get from the world. It is not about gaining popularity, getting more followers, or manipulating people to get what you want. Those things may be byproducts, but they are not the goal. The real, deep and lasting purpose of charisma is about what you can give to the world. It is a fundamentally generous act. The core of everything we have learned in this book can be boiled down to one simple idea. Charisma is the art of making other people feel good about themselves. When you listen to someone with your full, undivided attention, you are giving them the gift of feeling important and valued. When you ask a curious, open-ended question, you are giving them the gift of feeling interesting. When you remember their name and the details of their story, you are giving them the gift of feeling seen. When you share a vulnerable, relatable story of your own, you are giving them the gift of feeling normal and not alone. When you give a specific, sincere compliment, you are giving them the gift of feeling appreciated and competent. Each of these skills is an act of giving. It is about turning the spotlight of your attention away from yourself and shining it brilliantly onto someone else. This is the beautiful paradox we first touched on in Chapter 1. The more you focus on making other people feel good, the more they are drawn to you. The less you worry about being liked, the more likable you become. This is not a technique. It is a way of being. It is a philosophy for moving through the world. It is about seeing every person you meet as someone with a unique story, a hidden struggle, and a deep desire to be seen and understood. And it is about recognizing that you, in that brief moment of interaction, have the power to meet that desire. I want you to think about the ripple effect of this way of living. Imagine you practice your skills on the barista in the morning. You ask about their day, you listen to their answer, and you thank them by name. You leave them feeling just a little bit better, a little more seen as a human being. Because of that positive interaction, they are a little friendlier to their next customer. That customer who was having a stressful morning feels a small lift. Because they feel a little better, they decide not to send a cranky email to their colleague. Instead, they walk over and have a more patient conversation. That colleague, in turn, goes home feeling less stressed and has a more loving interaction with their children. This might sound like a fantasy, but it is the fundamental way that human energy works. The energy you put out into the world does not stop with the person you are talking to. It ripples outwards in ways you will never see and can never measure. Your small, consistent acts of presence and connection are not small at all. They are quiet acts of leadership. They are subtle acts of healing in a world that is often disconnected and lonely. This is your new mission. It is not to become the charismatic one at the party. It is to become a person who, as a habit, leaves every person they interact with feeling a little bit better than before they met you. That is your legacy. Years from now, people may not remember the specific stories you told or the jokes you made, but they will never forget how you made them feel. They will remember that in your presence they felt seen, they felt heard, they felt interesting, They felt valued. There is no greater gift you can give to another person, and there is no greater sense of purpose you can find for yourself. We have reached the end of our time together, but it is really just the beginning of your journey. The tools and mindsets we have discussed are not a magic formula. They are a practice. Some days it will feel easy, and other days it will feel like work. That is okay. Every small step forward is a victory. But remember, the most charismatic thing you can be is yourself, a version of yourself that is curious, kind, and genuinely interested in the amazing people all around you. It is not about being loud. It is about making a quiet, powerful impact. It is not about being perfect. It is about being present. This audiobook may be ending, but our journey of growth and connection does not have to. If you found value in our time together and want to continue exploring ways to improve your life, your mindset, and your relationships, you will find a home with us. We regularly share new insights and inspiration here on Audio Waves to help you on your path. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for listening. Now go out there and let the world see who you are.